Pocket aces. The hand every poker player prays to see. You look down, see two of them, and a little voice says, "Today is your day." Hold on to that feeling, because the hand we finish on is the only one in poker that ever got a man killed, and no record survives of what he was holding. We'll get there. First, the one everybody wants. Two aces is the best starting hand in the game. Against a random hand, you're an 85% favorite before a card hits the board. Nothing beats it. So of course it has three names, all from how it sits in your hand. They named it after an airline. Two A's. American Airlines, flying high. They named it after a bullet. Turn an ace on its side, and you've got a round in the chamber. Pure Old West. They named it after a rocket. Pocket rockets. The launch straight up. One hand, three names, the one everyone wants. But here's the part nobody puts on the merchandise. Heads up. Aces still lose about one time in 7. Then you watch them get cracked by some 9-8 that had no business in the pot. The best hand in poker, and it still breaks more hearts than any other. The second best hand should be safer. It isn't, and it has a nickname that mocks you for holding it. Cowboys. Two kings, second only to aces. It beats everything else you can be dealt. Nobody's quite sure why kings became cowboys. Best guess is the hard K sound and a century of Texas road games where a king got called a cowboy and it stuck. But kings carry a crueler nickname too, ace magnets. The second you commit your whole stack, an ace lands on the flop and you know your kings are dead. Here's the thing, the math doesn't agree. Hold kings, and an ace shows up on the flop only about 22% of the time. It feels like every time, because when it happens it costs you everything. And that's what you remember. There's exactly one time folding kings. Pre-flop is correct, when you know, for a fact, the other guy has aces. Good luck with that. The second best hand in poker. Terrified of a card that mostly never comes. Drop down one rank, and the hand gets prettier, more respectful, and somehow even more stressful to hold. The ladies, two queens. The queen is the only woman among the face cards, so the pair earned poker's most gracious nickname, used with affection, especially when it wins. There's a frontier name in there too, Calamity Jane, the gunslinger who rode with Wild Bill Hickok himself. Keep that name in your back pocket. You'll meet Wild Bill again at the very end. One quick correction, because somebody in the comments is already typing it. Queens are not sailboats. Sailboats is pocket fours. The 4 looks like a little sail. Queens never have been. The hand itself is third best in poker, beaten only by aces, kings, and the occasional ace-king. And still, queens torture the people who hold them. Roughly 40% of the time an ace or king flops over the top, and your pair is suddenly staring at a card bigger than you. A top 3 hand that sweats every flop. The next hand is also top 5, and it's the one poker players are taught to fear. Fishhooks. 2 jacks. Look at the letter J. It's a hook. That's the whole warning baked into the name. Jacks hook you and drag you under. There's an old line every player learns. 3 ways to play pocket jacks, and all 3 are wrong. Jacks are a top 5 hand out of 169. Elite, on paper, but they carry the worst reputation of any premium pair for one ugly reason. An overcard, a queen, a king, or an ace flops over your jacks 57% of the time, more than half. So you raise, and more often than not the flop brings a bigger card laughing at you, and you've no idea where you stand. The 4th best hand in poker, and the most feared thing you can be dealt. Now the most famous 2-letter hand in the game, the one that looks gorgeous and almost never delivers. Its second nickname is a flat-out insult, Big Slick. Ace-king, the strongest hand that isn't a pair, and the one that's busted more players than any other. Slick is the polite read, a big, slippery hand that slides out of your fingers with your whole stack. But Ace-king's best nickname is the brutal one, Anna Kournikova. The tennis star, famous, gorgeous, on every magazine cover, who never won a singles title in her life. AK looks like a winner, hardly ever is. Here's the math people refuse to accept. Against any pocket pair, even deuces, Ace-king is never the favorite. Coin flip at best, slight underdog at worst, and 2/3 of the time the flop misses completely. No pair, nothing. Just ace high and a decision you'd rather not make. The Texans even had a name for it, walking back to Houston. That's what the Houston players did after driving to Dallas, shoving it all in on Big Slick, losing everything. They walked home broke, the prettiest hand in poker, and it wins you a long walk home. That's the glamour block done. The hands everyone knows by name. Now the hands named for how they look on the felt. Snowmen. 2 8s. Stand an 8 upright and it's a snowman. 2 snowballs stacked at a carrot nose. That's the whole joke, and it's a good one. The 8s pick up other names too. Octopussy, off the old Bond film, because octo is 8. One thing 8s are not, supper, and this trips people up, is the 2 fat ladies. That's a bingo call from across the pond, not a poker name. At the table, 8s are a lukewarm pair. Fine, flippable, nothing to write home about. But here's your useless and excellent piece of trivia for the night. 8 is the only rank in the deck that doubles as a mathematical symbol for forever. 2 snowmen that go on infinitely. If 8s are snowmen, the smallest pair in the deck quacks, and it's hiding a secret. Ducks. 2 deuces. Look at the number 2. The curve, the flat base. It's a duck on the water, which is why players go quack quack, flipping them over. Deuce itself comes from the French word for 2. There's even a nickname for the gentlest man in history, Desmond. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, because Tutu sounds like tutu. The lowest pair in poker. Bottom of the family. And yet, here's the secret. Pocket deuces are still a slight favorite over ace-king before the flop. Read that again. The worst pair in the deck beats the prettiest hand in poker. The magazine cover Anna Kournikova hand, more often than not. The smallest ducks on the pond, quietly drowning Big Slick. But the next hand isn't the worst pair. It's the worst hand in all of poker. And the one players are proudest to win with. The hammer. 7-deuce offsuit. The single worst starting hand in Texas Hold'em, and it isn't close. 2 low cards, too far apart to make a straight different suits, so a flush is a fantasy, and any pair gets outkicked by half the deck. Against a random hand, you're barely a 1 in 3 shot. Against aces, about 1 in 8. It's a fold, every time, in every serious spot. So naturally, it's the most celebrated hand in poker. Players raise it on purpose. They bluff with it, win the pot, flip it over, and yell one word, hammer. Now, where does that name come from? Not as the glossaries claim, because it's as useless as a hammer. The blogger who popularized it tells a better story. He says it came from his home game in Northern Virginia, named after a real guy nicknamed Hammer, who kept winning with 7-deuce. In January 2004, he turned it into a public challenge. Win a pot with 7-deuce, then type hammer in the chat. And the poker internet ran with it. It got on television. On high-stakes poker, Phil Hellmuth picks up 7-deuce, fires a $40,000 river bet with garbage, and makes Mike Matusow fold pocket kings, a real premium hand. For the bonus, remember how we started? With aces, the best hand in poker. This is the other end of the deck, the worst hand in the game, and the only one people brag about beating you with. The next hand has the strangest nickname in poker. It's named after a machine. Picture a hand so unremarkable nobody would ever talk about it, except a computer once had something to say. They call it the computer hand. Queen 7 offsuit. The story goes that someone once fed every starting hand into a computer to find the exact middle, the break-even hand that wins exactly half the time. The machine spat out Queen 7. And here's the twist. The legend turns out to be accidentally true. Run it on a modern computer, and Queen 7 offsuit wins about 52% against a random hand, dead center. The exact dividing line between the better half of all hands and the worse half. A story that was probably invented that describes reality perfectly. The most average hand in poker, and somehow proud of it. The last 2 hands on this list are pure trash, and both of them won a world championship. The Doyle Brunson, 10-deuce, also known as Texas Dolly. On paper, it's garbage. 2 cards that can't make a straight, a deuce kicker that does nothing, a hand you fold without thinking. It's famous for one reason. The greatest player who ever lived won the biggest tournament in the world with it. Twice. In 1976, Doyle Brunson reaches heads up at the World Series of Poker main event. Winner take all, $220,000 on the line. He's holding 10-deuce. His opponent, a Texas car dealer named Jesse Alto, holds ace-jack. The flop comes ace-jack, 10. Alto makes top 2 pair, Brunson only bottom pair, 10s. Brunson gets it all in as a 10-1 underdog, drawing nearly dead. The turn is a deuce. Now he has 2 pair. The river is a 10. Brunson fills up. 10s full of deuces, a full house, and the world title. Now here's the part that doesn't sound real. Next year, 1977, he reaches heads up again and looks down at 10-deuce again, this time against Gary Bones Berlin. The board runs out, the turn pairs his deuce, the river brings a 10, and Brunson makes the same full house. 10s full of deuces, winning back-to-back world championships with the same trash hand 2 years running. The name Texas Dolly was an accident. A broadcaster misread Texas Doyle off a card, said Dolly on air, and it stuck. The greatest hand in poker is named after the greatest player, and it's a piece of garbage. The next trash hand didn't just win a title, it cracked the game wide open, and the most famous moment attached to it never happened the way you think. The Moneymaker. 5-4. In 2003, a Tennessee accountant named Chris Moneymaker, and yes, that's his real name, turns an $86 online satellite into a seat at the World Series of Poker main event. It's the first live tournament he's ever played. He wins it, $2.5 million, over a field of more than 800 players, and his final winning hand is 5-4. Bottom 2 pair to beat Sami Farha. That's why 5-4 carries his name. But here's where almost everyone gets it wrong. Ask any poker fan about the Moneymaker hand and they'll describe the bluff. The all-in against Farha, the commentator called the bluff of the century, the moment that supposedly launched the poker boom. Everyone ties that bluff to 5-4. It wasn't 5-4. On that hand, Moneymaker held King 7. King high, nothing, a total airball, when he shoved all in and stared Sami Farha into folding the better hand. The most famous bluff in poker history was made with King high. The 5-4 came a few hands later when he actually had something and won him the title. What that win did to the game is hard to overstate. An amateur with an internet name beat the pros on live television, and everybody watching thought the same thing. That could be me. In 2003, 839 players entered the main event. By 2006, almost 9,000 did. One accountant, one trash hand, and an entire industry exploded overnight. The hand named after the most famous bluff in poker wasn't even the bluff. But no hand in poker is more infamous than the last one. The one we opened with. The one a man was holding when he died. The dead man's hand. Aces and eights. The darkest nickname in poker, and it belongs to a real death. August 2nd, 1876. A saloon called Number 10 in Deadwood, Dakota Territory. Wild Bill Hickok, lawman, gunfighter, the most feared shot in the West, sits down at a poker table. Hickok always sat with his back to the wall so he could watch the door. This day, the only open seat faces the wrong way. He asks another player to switch. The man refuses, so Wild Bill sits with his back to the room. A drifter named Jack McCall walks in behind him, draws, and shoots him in the back of the head. The bullet passes clean through and lodges in another player's wrist. McCall later claims he was avenging his brother. And the cards in Hickok's hand as he fell, 2 black aces and 2 black eights, became the most legendary hand in the game. Except, here's the eerie part. There's no record from 1876 of what Wild Bill was holding. No newspaper, no coroner, no witness wrote down his cards that night. Aces and eights didn't become the official story until a book put it in print in 1926, 50 years after Hickok died. The 5th card has never been agreed on. Some say a queen with a drop of his blood on it, but nobody really knows. And strangest of all, before it ever meant death, aces and eights was once a phrase for the unbeatable hand, the best of the best. The most famous hand in poker history may be a legend invented half a century after the man it's named for was murdered. Nobody can prove he ever held it, and that's exactly why we still tell the story. 12 hands, 12 names, an airline, a bullet, a snowman, a computer, a dead gunfighter in Deadwood. Every nickname is a tiny story, and now you carry all of them to the table.